Hello, I'm Roger Edwards from Protection Review. I'm the Marketing Director. Today is the 17th of June and we've just wrapped ProtectX4. 7 speakers, 7 hot topics, 7 quite controversial topics, and quite a lot of debate after the fact. In this special additional video, I'm joined by Ali Crossley and Craig Brown from Legal & General, and we're going to talk about the topics that came up at ProtectX. If I could just ask each of you to very briefly tell me what you do at Legal & General and maybe a little bit of personal information about yourselves.
Yes, I joined Legal & General about 2 years ago now, Roger, and I'm Managing Director of our distribution channels. I'm also MD of our mortgage club. Something personal about me, but I guess lockdown's given me the opportunity to keep super fit. I run most days, and my garden has never looked better, but I've just been away for a week and I'm very annoyed that I've missed all the fabulous peonies, so that was a waste of time. But yeah, gardening and keeping fit is my thing when I'm not working.
Hi, Roger. So Craig Brown, Legal & General Intermediary Director. I work for Ali. Interesting personal fact. I'm not sure I've got too many, but equally like to keep fit. I've enjoyed coming out of lockdown and playing golf with my son recently. And I'm a keen martial artist, so black belt in Taekwondo. And through the pandemic, I've been trying to do that via Zoom, which is an interesting challenge.
Let's have a talk about some of the things that we heard in ProtectX4 today. Now, I think we absolutely have to talk about Mr. Richard Caterley, first of all. Obviously, Richard has recently retired from Legal & General. I think he's been there for 34 years. So a veteran, I think they called him in Cover Magazine. But as expected, Richard's talk was extremely engaging and covered quite a lot of very interesting ground, and he is absolutely passionate about protection and making more people talk about protection. In fact, he says that we should all try to focus on making protection sexy. So, Craig, what does he mean by that? Because I think some people might take it the wrong way.
So it's great to see Mr. Caterley. Actually, we do miss him, even though he's only been retired a short time. It's great to see his passion for protection is undimmed. I think certainly Richard has always talked about making protection sexy, and I think what he's really sort of articulated in his talk is actually just really talking about something that's attractive to people, and actually protection, I think, if explained in the right way and sold with even a sort of modicum of the energy that Richard shows for protection in terms of enthusiasm is a great thing to talk about, and how offers many benefits. I think often, as we say, is probably the best value purchase you hope you'll ever need. And Richard's energy and enthusiasm for selling protection certainly is undimmed in retirement. That's for sure.
Ali, you're relatively new to Legal & General, so you probably haven't worked with Richard for as long as some people have. But what was your view on his summary of those 3 decades?
The thing with Richard, as Craig said, is his energy and enthusiasm was undimmed until the very last minute, and in fact, he was emailing us afterwards. And I would say, the thing that always struck me about Richard was just the lot of common sense that he talked. In particular, he was always talking about people's ability to earn an income as being their biggest asset, and that it was incumbent on all advisors to always have a conversation about protection. And I absolutely agree with that. I talk to mortgage advisors and to lenders about that. I actually don't think mortgages should be sold without a protection conversation. I thought Richard made some really good points. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had, that should be had with every client meeting, and it doesn't need to be difficult. I think it's about getting into a habit of doing it, and Richard was fantastic at helping to train many advisors across the country to do just exactly that, and very generous in his knowledge in that support. So yeah, he talked a lot of sense, and will certainly endeavour to carry on his fantastic legacy and do that.
What really struck me, Ali, about Richard's talk was, yes, he had this marvellous experience of 3 decades, but the central foundation, I think, that he was saying was that a lot of protection conversations have been around the mortgage purchase and the mortgage sale and the mortgage conversation. And I was reflecting on the fact that he's just finished his 3 decades, his career at Legal and General. And we also heard in one of the other talks, we heard from 7 young financial services professionals who have just started their careers at AIG, and they've got potentially 30 years or so in the financial services industry ahead of them. And I just wondered whether they would face the same protection conversations as Richard has, mainly around the mortgage, or whether, because the world's different now perhaps, and certainly it's been affected massively by the pandemic, and who knows where that's going to lead us to, will their experience of the protection industry and as their career develops be the same as Richard's? What do you think about that, Ali?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really broad question, that, Roger. I mean, I think it's going to be different, isn't it? And I think, one, because the market has shifted in as much as fewer and fewer people actually are able to get on the housing ladder. And we would expect both advisors and the customers that they're speaking to be more and more likely, therefore, to be renters going forward. And actually, I think the average age of buying a house now is early 30s. It used to be early 20s. Disassociating the protection sale from a mortgage sale is going to become increasingly important. And in fact, Legal & General launched earlier this week with a rental platform provider an illness and injury insurance product, which is basically a simplified non-advised protection product, income protection product, I should say. And then I think linked to the second part of your question really is about the differences in the experience that those advisors are going to have over versus the experience that Richard has had. And I guess that's all to do with the way in which customers want to transact with all service and product providers is changing. I mean, you had a really interesting talk about AI, use of data and digital. The advisors, those younger advisors from AIG, and I thought that was a really fascinating series of videos to watch from those 7 that you mentioned. Their own experiences and expectations of both the way they wish to work, their ways of working, but also the way they transact with the world is very different to how I transact with the world, or Craig, or our children do things very differently to how we do them or used to do them. So I think the market is really shifting, and it's all to do with flexibility, agility, personalization, use of data. All of those things are catching up with the insurance industry very, very quickly, and we're having to jump on that bus and sort out our propositions and our ability to respond to all that data and the need to be agile. So it's a hugely different landscape going forward, but nonetheless a really exciting one. I was delighted to hear from those 7 the reasons why they've joined the industry, and we'll do as much as we can to support many, many more young people coming into the industry, because it's a fantastic career for them.
So Craig, I was just wondering, following on from what Ali was saying there, obviously Legal & General are looking to recruit people like that, people who are passionate and excited about financial services. So what are Legal & General doing? And maybe from a wider point of view, what should the industry be doing more of to attract the young talent, both into providers, I guess, and into financial advisor firms?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Roger. I think it's multifaceted, and I think certainly starts with education. I've got a 17-year-old daughter who's navigating A-levels at the moment, and I think it's pretty clear through her own school experience, very little is talked about financial services. I think schools still very much talk about, I guess, traditional pathways and jobs, in day-to-day schooling. So I think Legal & General certainly outreach to schools, and we aim to educate as many young people as possible about not just financial services careers, but general financial well-being and understanding in terms of financial matters, which is a cornerstone, I think, for any young person as they make their way into life. I think as a career, I think many people seem to stumble into financial services. So I think our challenge as an industry is to make it a destination. Actually, there's so many different professions and skills and exciting opportunities. I started my career as a procurement professional, and I've sort of ended up working through operations and sales, and I wouldn't have been able to do that, I don't think, in any other industry. So I think our challenge is to really reach out, with one voice and talk to our young people and our future generations around what a great place financial services and insurance in particular is to work, and offers a really rewarding and varied sort of career path, and lots of different skill sets and attractive to lots of different types of people.
That's exactly what happened to me. I came out of university with an economics and marketing degree, and I wanted to work in a marketing department. I wasn't particularly concerned about whether the industry was fast-moving consumer goods, cars, planes, or financial services. It just so happened that the best offer, the earliest offer, was within a financial services firm. So I guess you could argue that I stumbled into it as well, and then stayed off and on for the next 25 years as well. Ali, had anything to add on what Craig said about making financial services more of a destination for young people?
I guess only, I absolutely agree with everything Craig has said. I think the only thing I'd add is really that we're thinking very hard at L&G, and I know that the industry is as a whole, on how we support our people coming back to work and going forward too. And I guess, in lots of ways, the pandemic, dreadful as it's been, has delivered a real paradigm shift for how we think about appropriate and acceptable ways of working. And, the dreadful word hybrid model, but we are looking at what might a normal working week look like. And whilst it's difficult to be prescriptive, we're basically saying we're really open-minded. We actually don't mind where people work, so long as they can do their job most effectively. And definitely we need to have some face-to-face time for collaboration and innovation and that kind of thing. But on a day-to-day basis, unless there's a need to get on a train and travel for 3 hours, which we might have done without blinking an eye before the pandemic, we won't be doing that. And I think that's a good thing for younger people joining the industry to know, that we're not stuck in the mud and very old-fashioned in terms of how we're approaching that new way of working. We want to be very supportive of a more balanced lifestyle. We're much more focused on staff well-being and supporting people to have a structure around their work that works for them personally as well as professionally, in order that they can feel they can bring their whole selves to work and really do it very effectively. So I would just add that really about that sort of flexibility in terms of the future model of working piece. One
of the topics that always comes up, not only at protection review events like ProtectX4, but pretty much any financial services conference, is this issue of complexity. And we heard a bit about complexity today in the context of business protection. Zanelle from Towergate Health and Protection gave a great talk about business protection, and she was saying that a lot of companies are taking out recovery loans, backed by the government, but whilst there's been a massive increase in the number of loans being taken out, there hasn't been a corresponding massive increase in the amount of business protection insurance to cover those loans. And part of the problem, allegedly, is that business protection is complicated. Again, Craig, do you think that because of the pandemic, because of the increase in the number of loans, that it will swing the interest towards business protection again? And do we need to try and simplify it?
Yes, it was a great talk, actually. I really enjoyed Zanelle's piece around business protection, and it's something Legal & General have been really passionate about for a long time. Indeed, Mr. Cately in his sort of previous career spent a lot of time specifically training advisors around business protection. There's no doubt, actually, this is the cornerstone of why intermediaries and advisors are so important. The products can be complicated, and I think Zanelle made a great point. A trusted network of advisors, business protection specialists are there, or indeed providers like Legal & General could give you skills as an advisor to sell more business protection. So whether you choose to sell it or refer it, it remains a really critical product for a business, just like it does for a retail consumer. And actually, intermediaries and advisors are an absolute cornerstone in ensuring as many businesses are protected as possible. So I think the underlying message from Zanelle's talk was absolutely spot on, which is, if you can't gain the skills, find someone who has them, and don't miss out on what is such an important product for business customers.
Yeah, I think the subject of signposting has come up quite often over the last couple of years, and probably more in the context of protection in general. So, if you are a financial advisor and you're a wealth advisor, mainly an investment advisor, a pensions specialist, if you don't want to have the protection conversation, that doesn't remove your obligation, I guess, to refer your client to somebody who does want to have the protection conversation. But we haven't really talked about it in the context of business protection, and I'm glad that the spotlight was shone on that. Ali, have you got any thoughts about business protection from your point of view?
Well, only really to say, I agree with that. I think one of the things that was said was that, the opportunity, the complication or the challenge around complexity and propositions is clearly true, and it's been true for too long, hasn't it? So incumbent on us as an industry to sort that out. But I think, it was also pointed out there's this great opportunity now that people are much more aware of their mortality, morbidity, that now is the time to strike and have those conversations. I think the other thing, to your point just now about wealth advisors, Roger, is that actually customers are telling us that they want fewer relationship. They don't want to have a conversation with a wealth advisor and then a protection advisor. They want to have an integrated conversation. And so I think, advisors do need to get better at bridging the gap between the different categories of products, and either passing them on to somebody else or maybe having an online capability that fills the gaps in their own knowledge. But certainly being prepared to have broader conversations is feedback we get all the time from customers.
Well, we've actually covered quite a lot of ground here already, and time always flies by when we're having conversations like this about such interesting topics. So I wonder whether we could bring things to a close today, Craig and Ali, and maybe just get your last thoughts on where we're going as an industry. Is there one thing that you would like to see happen in the protection industry over the next year to 2 years, or is there anything particular that you think we should be focusing on? So, Ali, what do you think?
If I can just have one thing, I suppose I would urge advisors to open their minds in terms of how they sell protection and in terms of who they think it might be an appropriate conversation to have with, and in particular thinking about the rental opportunity. It's huge for us, for advisors. It's a massively underinsured sector, and we should start as an industry to really look at propositions and ways of engaging with renters going forward. So I think that would be my final thought.
Great. And Craig, yourself?
The current sort of tragic environment has put protection in the spotlight for maybe the first time in a long time, actually, and hopefully we don't see a repeat of that. But I guess, we've seen lots of advisors selling protection for the first time because of the heightened awareness, because of wider business pressures and challenges. So my ask for the wider audience and industry would just, to really keep that momentum going in terms of consistent and regular protection conversations, and maybe bottle a little bit of Richard's enthusiasm, and let's take up the challenge to make protection sexy and make sure as many customers are as protected as ever.
Bottle Richard's enthusiasm and make protection sexy. That's a great place to bring this chat to a close. Ali, Craig, thank you so much for joining me in this extra ProtectX4 little chat and debate. Thanks for coming on the show. We really enjoyed talking to you this afternoon. Everybody watching, do please continue the conversation on Twitter and use the hashtag ProtectX2021. We'll be back with ProtectX5 in September. So until then, see you there.